KeyCite is Westlaw's citation system. Citators can be used to help you locate additional sources that apply to your research question. They can also be used to help you determine whether an authority is still good law. In this video, you will learn how to use KeyCite to locate additional relevant sources. Let's say you're interested in using the case Bush v. Gore. There are two ways to use this case to expand your research. You can look for sources that have cited this entire case, or you can limit your search to resources that have discussed a particular rule of law that was also discussed in Bush v. Gore. Let's start with expanding your research using the entire case. Click on the Citing References tab. There are 4,399 sources that have cited Bush v. Gore. You can use the filters on the left-hand side of the page to limit your results. If you want to see other cases that have cited Bush v. Gore, click on Cases. You now have 319 citing references. You can further filter your results by jurisdiction. For example, click on the plus sign next to Federal and the plus sign next to Courts of Appeal, and then click the box next to Sixth Circuit Court of Appeal. Your results now list 12 cases from the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeal that cited Bush v. Gore. Let's look at those 12 results more closely. You see that the first two cases treated Bush v. Gore negatively. We'll talk about that more in another video. Towards the right side of the page, you can see a depth of treatment bar. Think of this like the battery indicator on your cell phone. The more bars, the better. Stewart v. Blackwell has a 4-bar depth of treatment, indicating that Stewart discussed Bush v. Gore in detail. On the far right, you can see a column labeled Headnotes. Remember that headnotes are individual points of law. This means that Stewart v. Blackwell discussed the points of law in Headnotes 2, 7, and 9 in Bush v. Gore. You can hover over the number of the headnote to read the point of law from each headnote. For example, Headnote 7 in Bush v. Gore discussed the intent of the voter standard used in the manual recount of ballots. You can also expand your research by using a case to find secondary sources. Staying on the Citing References tab in Bush v. Gore, click on Secondary Sources. There are 2,631 secondary sources that have cited Bush v. Gore. You can further limit your results by using the filters on the left-hand side. Let's say you wanted to see which law review articles published in the last 6 months have cited Bush v. Gore. Select Law Reviews, and then click on the drop-down menu under Date, and select Last 6 months. You now have a list of 21 law review articles published in the last 6 months that cite Bush v. Gore. Now you know how to expand your research by finding sources that have cited your case. Let's discuss how to expand your research by finding sources that have cited a particular point of law within your case. Return to the text of Bush v. Gore by clicking on the Document tab. Review the headnotes to find the prior point or points of law that interest you. Let's say that you're interested in the equal protection requirement that recount procedures provide some assurance that equal treatment and fundamental fairness are satisfied. Scroll down and read through the headnotes until you find the headnote that discusses the point of law you're interested in. Headnote 8 is the one that discusses your point of law. From here, there are two ways to expand your research. One is by looking at cases that have cited Bush v. Gore on the point of law in Headnote 8. The other is to look for cases that have discussed the point of law in Headnote 8, but may or may not have cited Bush v. Gore. If you want to find cases that have cited Bush v. Gore on the specific point of law discussed in Headnote 8, click on the link under the headnote. In this case, the link says 31 cases that cite this headnote. You now have a list of 31 cases that have cited Bush v. Gore on the point of law in Headnote 8. Everything you learned earlier in this video still applies. You can use the filters to narrow your results by jurisdiction. You can limit by depth of treatment. You can even look at secondary sources that cite Bush v. Gore on this particular point of law. Let's say that you want to look at cases that have discussed the point of law in Headnote 8, but may not have actually cited Bush v. Gore. Return to the text of the case by clicking on the Document tab. Then scroll down to Headnote 8. Next to the headnote are the topic and key number that the editors at West have assigned to this point of law. You are looking at Topic 92, Constitutional Law. Note that the large topic Constitutional Law is then subdivided into Equal Protection, Particular Issues Relating to Elections, Voting, and Political Rights, and then the Conduct of Elections in general. Click on the topic and key number assigned to this point of law, that is, the most specific subdivision listed, in this case 92K3652, Conduct of Elections in general. You will see that this point of law has been discussed 6 times in the United States Supreme Court. Note that the first 3 results are Bush v. Gore. That's because this specific point of law was discussed in 3 separate places in the Bush v. Gore opinion. If you're interested in cases that were decided by a court other than the Supreme Court, you can change your jurisdiction by clicking on Change. Select Ohio and the 6th Circuit and click Apply. You now have a list of 16 cases that have discussed the point of law in Headnote 8. This list includes decisions from the Ohio State Courts, federal district courts within the 6th Circuit, the 6th Circuit Court of Appeals, and the United States Supreme Court.